Finally, chance to sit down. How you doing this evening?
I'm chilling, man.
It's wonderful, wonderful, man. So, who are you?
um, Outside of just being a human, straight up artist, curator, visionary, designer, um, yeah, person who's in love with life and creating. Honestly,
So, being in love with life, creating, inspiration, dreams. How do you define your art? How do you define yourself as an artist in this time today? So take us
um,
back to the beginning. Paint us a picture of the artist who you started off as, developing to the artist that you are.
so that's a really good question. Honestly, I feel like art has always been a part of like the DNA and the background of who I was, but I think I didn't really embrace it and dive too deep into being an artist until maybe like high school. I think growing up, we kind of all grew up drawing, um, whether that was characters or at the time for me, it was like my thoughts of being an architect. And I'll never forget me wanting to be an architect because I was like, okay, I get to draw buildings and just like really like cool stuff. And I had a teacher who was like, well, there's a lot of math involved with that. And so I was like, well, I'm not good at math. So I kind of threw my hands up about it. But looking back at it, to be honest, and this is for like any kid who's like growing up, don't let something like that deter you. Because I feel like regardless of what she said, I probably still could have went forward to become an architect. Um, but anyways, that was kind of one of my first, I guess, thoughts or moments of okay, I could be an artist. And so, anyways, went forward in school, really didn't think too much about it. And then something happened around 10th or 11th grade. And at that point, I think I just got tired of what school represented overall. And I think a lot of outcast or what you would consider to be like subcultures now probably felt this way growing up in school, whether that was being a skater, artist, or just a kid who just kind of stood out was I just don't feel like I belong here. And I think my 10th and 11th grade year was that moment where I just was like, this isn't me. And that's when I really went head forward into art and expression. Um, Whether that was through skating back then, uh, graffiti, I had a black book, anything that was just whatever I could express with dancing, anything that was a form of expression, I just totally was able to just let go and not care about what other kids thought of
You
me.
see yourself as the black sheep.
Yeah, yeah, I always have, man. But I didn't, here's the thing, you don't think about those things when you're younger because you're just being you. It's just not until you start getting older and these boxes of classification start coming in place that, people put labels and stuff on you. Other than that, bro, we just grow up liking and doing the things we want to do, you
It's
know?
hard to put yourself in a box when you feel like you can make the box.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that was really what it was. It really was like, yo, I don't have to subscribe to what a quote unquote black kid is supposed to listen to. I don't have to subscribe to what I'm supposed to wear and all that kind of stuff. It's like if I like it, I'm gonna do it. If I want to listen to it, that's how it's gonna be or whatever. And so, you embrace it. And that's what I did. I stopped trying to hide and I embraced all the things, creatively. So that's the next step in my creative journey. And then um some of the best grades I ever made in school because I had trouble in school with like regular like secular education and learning. So the best grades I would say in school came when I went to Atlanta Area Tech for graphic design. And at first, at one point, I was like, man, I'm gonna go to Art Institute and kind of, follow the traditional artist path or whatever. And so I went to Art Institute. It was going to be way too expensive, way more money than I wanted to spend on coming out of art college or whatever. And so then I was like, okay, I'll just go to Atlanta Area Tech, learn graphic design, some of the best grades I ever made. But that's when I knew deep down that my calling was in the arts. It wasn't in I'm not smart enough or I'm not like I couldn't learn, curriculum. It was just all about what I was naturally just interested in and what my heart, brain, and everything just picked up on. So fast forward because that's a whole story in itself. I came up with my first clothing brand, Yume Sweet Dreams.
Wait, before you start there,
Okay.
tell me the first time you laid your hands on a piece that you came up with and you were like, this is what this means to me. This is art for me.
um Man, that's a tough one, dude.
Or the most memorable. Doesn't have to necessarily be the first, but like it was something that you had a dream about it, or you saw something while you were skating. You heard a song.
Oh,
You put pen and pad, you transferred it to the computer.
Yeah.
What's the first piece of tangible art that was meaningful to you?
It was a drawing for sure, and it was the drawing that I did of my first character, Roboy. And that whole
I remember
concept,
Robo.
yeah, and that whole concept came from Jet Set Radio. I mean, Jet Set Radio and Jet Grind Radio, bro, that was such an iconic game. I mean, so many memories, and I would say it was one of the only games at the time that literally embodied like all the different hobbies and interests that I had. It was music, it was skating, it was art, it was dance, it was Tokyo. Like that game was like everything, and it really didn't have a mass following, nowhere near what it is now, dude.
No,
And
it was the first game.
yeah, that was
with
like
this
that.
system.
Yeah, on Dreamcast, which is one of my favorite systems. But um, just to your overall question, is just it was me drawing my first character, Roboy, which I ended up taking like the TV head because I was watching an anime called Fooly Cooly at the time, and so one of the characters and they had a TV, and I was skating, and there was a character named Roboy. So, anyways, that whole drawing or illustration was very iconic for me.
All right, you weren't really clear about what the system was set up for you. How did you find your own lane in creating? Even though you went to school for a format, I'm sure you learned things there that you probably have added to your practice now, or some things that you fine tuned. But how do you relate that coming, that coming to moment, saying, "Hey, I just know I don't care about the system. I want to create." Tell me more about that. Tell me how disciplined you had to be.
That's a good question. Um, I think along my process of creating, um, it's been one of those things where I would find something that I became in love with, and I'd either try to figure out like, man, how do I do that? Or man, I got this vision that comes up in my head and I want to execute on it. And so then I kind of start going down the rabbit hole of learning the skill set. And so yeah, it started out with drawing. Fashion has kind of always been a part of the DNA of like wanting to get fresh or just being really into
Yeah,
clothes.
just look at you.
Yeah, get like being into clothes and fashion and expression has always been there. So I would say honestly, man, it's been a step by step process of learning and being very just a student or wanting to be a student of different things. And as time went on, I started seeing how the dots in all of these things could connect. and how they speak a very similar language, even though they're all different like disciplines. There's a harmony in which they speak together. So I don't know if that answers your question directly.
It does, and it goes into my next question. Tell me more about the name Aki, the
Okay.
symbolism behind that, because I know there's a huge relation to the name as well as the art
Yeah.
and the fashion and the music.
Yeah. So you can go check out my website. Major plug. Akisan.world. So Akisano is the full name. And so um Aki is just short for Akihabara, which is a place in Japan. It's a long strip where you can find like vintage video games, anime, manga, the whole nine. My first time that I ever went to Japan, I was just so overwhelmed by like all the arcades. And I mean, it just felt like it was totally me. And so that kind of stuck. And then my gamer name, nerd moment, my tag name in this game called Fantasy Star Online was Sonosuke, which I end up getting for Rurouni Kenshin. Anyway, so I just figured I would just merge the two together, Akisano. And now it's just turned into just a lot cleaner, is Aki. But Akisano is the full name.
All right, so I know you as Anthony.
Uh-huh.
So tell me about the journey of Aki.
Um, yeah, I mean, honestly,
Because it has been a journey.
it really has been. And that's also another good question because you're making me think in real time. It is the name came later for sure. And I think, oh, as a matter of fact, I just thought about it. So DJing was like that one thing that brought out the Aki part, if you want to say. And so um, Akisano became my DJ name. Now that I'm thinking about it, and so it's
How long
kind.
you been DJing?
Oh, dude, I've been DJing now for like maybe 7 or 8 years, and so yeah, man. With that being the case, it became Akisano, and then Akisano became like the brand, and then the brand has now grown into an entire world, if you would.
So take me back to that arcade. How many times have you been back? Is that because it being the place that you felt at home in? I know that you've been able to find other places like that because, me knowing you, you could look at a caterpillar crawling on the sidewalk and get inspiration from it.
Yeah.
So I want you to tell me about some other sources or places that you've traveled or songs that you've mixed that's helped you to create this world of Aki.
Um, man, that that's that's a good conversation, man, or a good question because it does link a lot of things. And I would say travel was one of the biggest things that has influenced a lot culturally, musically, my whole style and aesthetic and all the things. And so I would say, my first love was going to Paris. Like I've always loved Japan. And so we'll go back to Japan at a different point, but Paris was like that was the spot, because that's when
Fashion
fashion,
capital.
fashion capital, man. And it's funny because at the time, um, Ye had dropped niggas in Paris.
Talk about it.
And so, the Watch the Throne era, that whole My Beautiful Twisted Fantasy, um, that was like for me, I was already into clothes and stuff. Pharrell, Lupe dropping, Maharishi and all these designers, but that was the thing that pushed it over the edge for me to really just want to go to Paris and just see what that experience was like outside of just the architecture being really good and fashion being on point. um I would say Paris, Japan, of course, and then as of
Both
late,
fashion capitals.
yeah, and as of late, Morocco, which we can go into a whole nother um breakdown into that whole arc as to how now I've like gotten really big into African culture, but even like Arab culture.
How many countries you been to, Aki?
uh Honestly, I don't know. We always have that. We do this thing where we think the past was just so good, better than the present sometimes, but you realize you were going through things back then, just as you are going through things now. And that black book or those books was that for me. It's funny because those books, they were like pictures and art and stuff, but I would walk around with a book now. It's not drawings, it's literally my journal. And the one that I'm working in now that we're on the subject, it's a black book. It's a Moleskine. It's a Moleskine black book, man. And I haven't been drawing in it, but I do journal, and I've been kind of keeping track for the past 3 or 4 years of my life.
How long you been journaling in tenure, you think?
Yeah, like literally, dude, the last 3 or 4 years, it's been journaling, like just hardcore pen to paper, just words, but just overall, um, I can't even say it's been an overall because it was a huge gap. It was from
You
that.
travel with it as well?
Yeah. Definitely travel with it. From that old period where I was drawing and sketching, I kind of stopped with the black books, and I just picked it up when I was doing some, traveling for like the past 3 or 4 years.
Um, any pieces from the black book make it to fabric?
Yeah, definitely, man. Those, I mean, that was such a cool time because those drawings, whether it was Roboy or any of the Yume characters, like um,
I still got a couple more Yume pieces.
yeah, any of those, and honestly, that's translated in the DNA of the stuff that I have now.
Yeah, decade old.
Yeah,
Still,
it might,
still gold.
yeah, it might not be branded as Yumi, but if those characters have traveled throughout this entire time, and so yeah, the characters that end up coming out of those black books was the birth of Yumi, and even some of my earlier shirts that I had did back then came from pictures from that book.
Do you see the correlation between your characters and you, or these imaginary figures in your subconscious that you're creating, rebranding?
So earlier me, the characters were definitely coming from friends, you know. All of my friends, in some way, shape, or form, either had a character or was like a big part of like the inspiration at certain points or when I was doing art. Um,
And knowing you, also, I want to add, I feel like every time you've had a circumstance, a character has come out of
yeah. So it started out as like, yeah, if something happened to me in life, like a major shift, or I was going through like sadness or pain or excitement, even, it would be a situation where, yeah, I'd come out with a new character. But now, the cool part is you have like this whole era of where I'm just like discovering, experimenting, and then Yumi was a practice of branding and getting into clothes, and it was an exercise, right? And so fast forward, I get into some DJing, and then you get to now where I brought all that together with travel, and it's created an entire, like I said, world. Um, but yeah, I think without the pain, the struggles, the failures, the goods, just experiencing life and not putting it into the art, it would just be really cool illustrations or something that you just look at and it's nice. But depth has always been at the core of everything that I do. It's always some sort of story or deeper emotion being told. So whether it was a character to an entire just like outfit to a space, designing a space, um, that expression of where I'm at is gonna always come out and surface.
Okay, I'm glad you said that. Life is a way for, especially life through the lens of an artist, is many ways that we have to adapt. You spoke about failure earlier. Tell me about a time where you were able to turn that into a piece or into a mix
um,
or who's that character now?
dude, I mean, we could go from this current project, from within, which is a total like from it's the rebirth is how I look at this current project from within. The title meaning exactly coming from within. And
Double entendre.
yeah, double entendre and the pain, but not only the pain, just the rebuilding of who I am. And so yeah, I've gone through some turmoil, man, in life, and I've come out. I had a mix that I hadn't dropped yet. It was called Turbulence, and the whole concept behind it when I was in my space between worlds era, and I was doing a lot of traveling, was you're on a plane, right, and everything is going fine. This is like life. You could use a car if you wanted to as an accident, but we're gonna go with the plane because that's the space that I was in. I was traveling a lot on planes. And so you're coasting in the air, and what happens? Okay, you hit a little bump, a little shake, right? Okay, not bad. But depending on how severe or bad the turbulence becomes to get, your nerves, everything becomes unsettling. And so that was a part of the experience of when I was, and this is, kind of fast forwarding my story, but when I was traveling back and forth between Space Between Worlds, Morocco, and Atlanta, on those flights, not only was I going through turbulence on planes, but I was going through emotional turbulence. Not only was I dealing with two different cultures, I was dealing with relationship situations. I was dealing with just my whole life in a shift. And turbulence came because I wanted to put that uneasy feeling into the music, into the sound, into the mix. Because life is not always going to be pleasant, joyful, and just this smooth, easy coasting flight. You're gonna face turbulence. You're gonna face ups and downs in life. And I wanted to put that in that mix, which I'll drop eventually. Um, but that's what I've learned through my art. If you look, and I'll let you get to the next question. But through my art, Yume represented very optimistic, like happy, ecstatic, like life's a bowl of cherries. and to now where you get it's the same person, but you go through life and now it's like black. Now it's like from within. Now it's, the character, which is me, has become more complicated and complex through my storytelling. So there always will be a cute element, a kawaii element to what it is that I do, and depth was even in Yumi, but even more so now have I been able to, kind of bring all that together with sound, visuals, clothing, and the whole gambit.
Well, I feel like you have. I feel like From Within is gonna be just the first of many chapters because just seeing how you're able to market Space Between Worlds, how there were several mixes attached to it, even before that, and Layover. I like that there's always like you've kept a concept and you created art from every concept. What do you see the future like as an artist for you?
That's a man. So you know what's cool
Because
about
we've
that?
had Layover, we've had Space Between Worlds,
We've
From
had
Within.
I've had all my I've got From Within, all my act projects. Keep It Together was probably my most saddest, depressing piece, believe it or not. And it had nothing to do with black. Um, but moving forward, man, I'm gonna tell you something. I used to I used to measure, and I didn't know this at the time, but I used to measure success based upon or getting it mixed up with being famous.
Completely.
It's not the
Two
same,
different
it's
things.
not the same thing. And so to any young artists or up and coming artists, we want to get our stuff out there. We want people to connect with the art. We want people to connect with the music, the visuals and the clothing. We want people to connect with it. But never get it mistaken that you're not successful if you're not getting a million clicks, a million likes, a million views. That has nothing to do with it. Like, cool is visibility, but it's not quantifiable to really your overall worth, at least to me. And so with that being the case, I let go of this pressure of these social media games and standards that are invisible that everyone's put out here, to where it's like, dude, no matter what, I'm always gonna be an artist. I'm always gonna put out my stuff, and I'm always going to continue to create, man. So I don't do work for anyone else. I do it for myself. Um, and I have now allowed not putting so much pressure on myself, um, to not only be perfect, but to actually enjoy the process of making the art and not thinking about always the final result. So definitely always going to continue to make more projects, more fashion pieces, more mixes, but just not even, I don't even want to say at a higher scale. That's fine, but more collaborative, more working with other creatives to tell stories. So yeah, I mean,
Where can our viewers find the tales of Aki
oh
and the
yes,
pieces of Aki?
it's gonna be on Akisan.world. Akisan.world is my website. There I have a blog where I break down like my travel experience. You can see some of my pieces. But yeah, Akisan.world.
The music as well.
Yeah, mixes. Yeah, I got my mixes on there. YouTube videos, the whole nine.
You want to tell us the inspiration behind your look today?
Oh, no, you just got to put it together. Yeah, you just got to put that together for yourself, man. You either get it or you don't.